All right. Welcome, everybody, to episode 2 of the Fellers Podcast, the Dota podcast by pubs for pubs. I'm back with Flitnet on the other side. If you listen to episode 1, we're here to recap what we talked about in episode 1. If you didn't listen to episode 1, go back and listen to it, but you probably did. So, the idea of this, just really quick as a recap, because this is the beginning, is on the previous episode, we're going to have decided on a hero that we're going to play, and then Split and I both went and played a few solo queue games on our own accounts, and now we're back here to talk about that. So our hero that we decided on last time on episode 1 was we played 3 Tidehunter. So we both played a handful of games. We're going to recap it for the first half of this episode, and then after we're done discussing Tidehunter, there'll be a transition, and then the second half is going to be me with another guest picking the next hero that we're going to do for the following episode. So welcome back to Flit.
Thank you very much for having me again.
Yeah. How did your Tidehunter games go?
A lot better than expected, actually. So I played a total of 6 solo queue games, and I won 5 of them. So I went 5-1.
Holy.
Yeah, I didn't expect to win this much. My original plan was to play 5, but I was like, I feel like I need at least a loss on the board. So I played an extra 1, and then I lost on the 6th. So yeah, it went really, really well. I was pleasantly surprised with the hero, I think.
Yeah, I only played 3 games after the last episode, but as I mentioned before when we were talking, I played 2 right before. So I have 5 games in the last pretty much in the last week. The 3 that I played, I went 1-2. One of the losses, I got kind of griefed by my team, but then the other loss, I played like absolute dog water and probably griefed my team, so kind of evened out. And then the 2 games I played before I won. So overall, I went 3-2.
Okay.
But my later games, the ones after the podcast, didn't feel exceptional. But I think the hero's pretty good. I was also kind of pleasantly surprised with the hero in general. I think when we talked about it last week, I was blown away that the win rate was so low. I felt like this is maybe like a 48-49% win rate type hero. So how did your games go, like, in general? Like, how were the flow of the games, and how strong did the hero feel relatively, all that kind of stuff?
So laning phase overall went pretty well. I think Tide is a decently strong laner with a surprising amount of kill potential. A level 1 gush with the armor reduction, with the damage it does, with the slow. It's a very, very powerful spell in the early levels in the lane. And then... So the weird part, I think, with Tidehunter, because the build that I did, right, in pretty much every game was rush a Meteor Hammer, and then go Boots, Soul Ring, go backs for the Phase Boots, and then Blink Shard. Like, pretty much in every game I did something like that, or some variation of that. Once you get a Meteor Hammer, which you can get like 7 or 8 minutes in, because you literally just rush it as a first item. Like, sometimes I would just even like skip Magic Wand. Like, you don't get Boots until after. You just take the enemy tier 1 tower really quickly. Like, really fast. I think in every game I had the tier 1 tower before 10 minutes.
Yeah, I found... So we discussed that we were both pretty much going to go Meteor Hammer every game. I did it every game. I didn't do any without it. I didn't do any Naked Pipe Righteous or anything like that. It felt like every time I got Meteor Hammer, at least I think one of the games we lost lane kind of bad. And then if you lose lane, it feels bad because you can't actually pressure the tower, and now you're this tied with a Meteor Hammer, and you're just farming stacks, and you wish you were another hero. But if you get the Meteor Hammer at a good timing, literally, like, it's like a two casts of the Meteor Hammer, and you have the tower. That's how it felt for me. Is I cast it once, I go clear a wave, and then by the time it's cooldown, I cast it again, and then the tower is just gone.
Yeah.
So that felt really strong. Laning stage for me was okay. Did you first phase it every game?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so I'll say this. I think the biggest weakness of Tide was that, and I also first phased it every game because I was like, I just wanted to play it. I think there are heroes that just kind of wreck this hero in lane, and if you first phase it and the other team picks Picks one of those counters. Huerta is one of them. I had to play against a couple. Huertas is really good against him. Then it struggles. And then I kind of struggled because I think that I wasn't confident in like my starting items and what to do. I was getting like I think the mistake I made was I was getting pieces for Bracer and Wand, and I just went Bracer Wand into Meteor Hammer.
Okay.
And I think I probably should have went double Gauntlet and just gone straight into or like use those for Soul Ring and skip the Bracer. Because I felt like, yeah, I don't know. I did you go Quality Blade? Like, what was your opening items? Did you have the same starting items? Did you go double Gauntlet?
Yeah, I think every game I did Tango, 2 branches, 2 gauntlets, and a Quelling Blade.
Okay.
Just so I can last it a lot, and those 2 gauntlets transition into a Soul Ring later on.
Yeah. So I think that's one mistake I did. I don't know why. I don't know why it was in my head to go Bracer. I'm not really sure. So that was stupid. And then the other thing with laning is that I think Tide is really strong if you have a 4 that's staying with you. Because if you're playing, like, so one game I was playing against PA Lich, and
okay.
I forget what my 4 was in this game. I'm pulling it up here. But that was 2 heroes that had kill potential on me because they had enough burst to kill me in lane. And I think I had an Earth Spirit. I had an Earth Spirit 4, so he was like doing stuff mid and rotating and stuff. And so if you're against a kill lane and you don't have a partner, then all of a sudden you feel really weak because you're not really able to threaten the enemy carry with Anchor Smash. Like, you can't get on the wave and Anchor Smash the wave because if they have, especially that particular lane, because it's like low cooldown stuff. So if you're far up in the lane and you contest the wave at all, 1v2, you just kind of die.
Yeah.
So that part felt weak. But yeah, if you're able to, if you have a position forward that can pressure with you, at least till you get like, maybe not even full Meteor Hammer, but at least till you get your Ring of Health. And then, maybe that's a bit stronger. So that was the one part that felt weak. But yeah, if you had general 2v2s, the laning feels surprisingly pretty decent. Pretty decent.
For sure.
Did you find yourself farming like ancient stacks at all, or no?
No.
Yeah, I didn't either. I think I did because there's maybe one game where I fell back to and had like a triple ancient stack and cleared it, but I feel like that's kind of an old Tide thing, and I think people are stacking less now. It's kind of realized there's so many more things to do on the map, even though stacks are still good. Like, I don't see a lot of support stacking too much. They're more focused on pressuring side lanes. Because when I think of old Tidehunter offlane, I used to think, you like get level 5 or 6, and then you used to not even skill Ravage at 6. You get like 2 levels in Kraken and 3 in E, and then you go clear ancient stacks. But now I think the playstyle is just completely morphed. So I realized that playing it, I was like, I'm not really ever in a position where I'm hitting ancients because I'm wanting to take their tower and just take over their poverty camps and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah. I think that's exactly the point that I was going to make, is going back to your ancients to farm feels counterproductive to what Tide wants to do, which is take the tier 1 tower really fast and then start pressuring other towers on the map. Whether that's the tier 2 on the enemy safe lane, because I've done that in a couple of games, and like you take like half the tower at like 11 minutes, and like how do you respond to that? Like, you can't. Right? Or you start going around the map, like using Ravage, to get a kill or 2 kills, and then you take the tower after that. I think it's 50% Tidehunter and 50% Meteor Hammer. I think it's really the combination of this hero and this item that makes it this strong. But your pushing power is insane. In every game that I played, I think I was the highest building damage, or close to. Like, I have games where I have like 15k building damage as a Tidehunter in like 30 minutes. I'm like, what happened?
Yeah, I think it is the part of it that has to do with Tidehunter specifically that it doesn't work with other heroes is like, when you're against a Tidehunter that's meteor hamming your safe lane, you're so not incentivized to go kill this hero because it's like he has Kraken Shell and you have to bring 3 heroes probably, and even then he might Ravage and then they have TPs and then they turn the fight. It's so much easier to just be like, whatever, just ignore the Tidehunter and just go do other things. But
Yeah.
if he's I had a game like that too. I think it was one of the first two that I played where I think I was taking their tier 2 at like 9, 10, 11 minutes because and that was the case where it was kind of a stomp because we won our lane and then our safe lane was also winning. So they had to address our safe lane, and I was just able to shove that because their position 1 was just trying to farm poverty camps and they were just ignoring me. But so it's definitely like a win more hero, right? Like if your game's going well, if your side, like your other lanes are winning, I think this is one of those heroes that it's really good to have in those type of games because you can really snowball the entire map.
Oh yeah.
And that felt really good. And I know we said this at first, but in practice, it's definitely true. The shard is so good.
It is really strong,
unbelievably strong against so many heroes. Like I played against a Slark in the last game, which also wasn't a super fun lane. But yeah, he just can't do anything. You just blink and you put it, even in his ulti, like it doesn't shake it. It was really good in Slark. I played against a Night Stalker in that same game, and it was really good against him. I played against a Timber Saw, completely wrecks him. Even the heroes that it doesn't, it's still just a really strong slow. But there's some heroes that it just completely destroys their kit, and it's like we said, it's 5 hits. It's impossible to kill. Really yeah, I think that was the strongest part of his whole kit, which wasn't really a surprise to us because that's how we envisioned it playing out. Did you have any particular matchups that you felt were difficult, or any, whether in lane or just in the game in general?
So I did play, I think, against a Muerta once or twice, which games felt maybe a tiny bit harder, but not crazy. The one hero that I think I had a lot of trouble against was Weaver.
I didn't see any Weavers.
Both in lane and later in the game. So you can leash the Weaver, right? And he can't really do much, but you never prevent him from time-lapsing. The time-lapse doesn't remove the anchor, which is funny, but he's still kind of hard to pin down, like before you have shard, and even when you do, he can get a BKB. It's, that was maybe the one thing that felt hard. This isn't hero specific, but Silver Edge is an insanely good item against Tidehunter.
Yeah, for sure.
I didn't really realize it at first, but the games that did go late, where I found myself like up against 1 or even 2 Silver Edges, you get broken, and all of a sudden you are just another hero that can die very, very quickly. I think in the Weaver game there was also a CK who went Silver Edge, and he would burst me down, and he gets a stun on you and you're broken, you can't do anything. So that felt pretty hard to play against.
Yeah. I had to play against a Silver Edge too, but I'm trying to remember what game it was. But it's funny you bring up Weaver, because I know we talked about that matchup specifically in the first episode, and about, I couldn't remember because I didn't play the matchups in so long how it felt in lane. Because in theory we were saying you could press E every time he Sakuchi on you. Did that come up at all? Were you able to do that or trying to do that, or was he just, it didn't really matter?
He didn't really do that. Honestly, he pretty much just right-clicked me.
Yeah.
Or he did it to my support.
No, that's fair.
Yeah. The lane felt even, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, which I guess is okay, but I think in this patch you definitely want to be winning the off lane. So anytime you have an even lane, it doesn't feel great.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of other things that were tough matchups.
So I can talk a little bit, I think, about what went really well with Tidehunter versus what happened in my loss and what caused that loss.
Okay.
So the first 2 games that we played were very, very quick. I think they were 21 and 25 minutes for me. They were really fast. And I wouldn't necessarily call them like stomps, but they were definitely like very like steamrolly. We picked up a lot of momentum, and the enemy team had a greedier lineup that wanted to get to the late game, which is kind of how the meta plays out right now, right? You want to delay the game. You want to farm your items comfortably, get to 45 minutes. And then when all of your cores are online is when you can really go ham. That didn't happen in those games, obviously. Both games I had a support that went early mech, which I think a mechanism is a decent item on Tide in theory. But if you can get a support to build it early and get it like 10, 11 minutes in. So I had a Wisp, I think, in the first game who did that, and then a Chen in the second game who did that. And then you group up with Tide and a Meteor Hammer, and nobody can respond to that. You just have way too much sustain, way too much pushing power, and while the enemy team is trying to like just split up and farm, you're threatening high ground like 16, 17 minutes in, which is insane to do in this patch.
Yeah, it's like old school TI lineups. You said like Tide has always been maybe not recently in the last couple of years, but he's always been one of those heroes that comes about in TI, and say with the Chens and the Isles of the world. So when you were talking about that, I just envisioned like that's how there's a lot of metas that have felt that way, where you just play around this Tidehunter early game. And yeah, that hasn't felt super strong in this patch, but it was cool that you're still able to do these things. You don't have to stick to, all right, this is what the meta is. We have to go late. You can still run over games. I didn't really get any. Did you get any games that were where you got to late game and you got to play like refresher Tide? I didn't get to any of these games. All of mine were under sub 45 minutes.
The last game I played was an hour, which was the one that I lost. And I don't think I actually got to build a refresher. But this is the other point that I wanted to talk about, is that late game Tide does not feel good.
Yeah.
It really doesn't. This hero, I think if you pick it in a lineup that intends to like peak at around 25, 30 minutes and just win then, is super strong. But if you miss that window, Tide falls off very, very quickly. It did not feel good in that hour game at all. It just, it felt really bad.
The games I had were, they had there was a loss I had against the PA, and they had another core that went early BKB. And when two cores on the enemy team have early BKBs, they had a Kunkka, and he had a pretty early BKB. Mm-hmm. And a Wraith King. They had 3 BKBs. All their cores went BKB. So, when you get to late game and all the cores have BKBs, your hero does feel kind of useless. But I think that kind of sticks to what we talked about the strength of this hero really doesn't, like, it's not just the Ravage. It's really everything else about his kit where you're, we're able to take over the map and hit this early timing. If you're playing around just Ravage, I don't know. It doesn't feel exceptional because you used to think like late game Tide, you get double Ravage, but I think with the state of the game now and with kind of the power creep and all the saves you have on supports, it's really hard to get like a Ravage and blow up 2 or 3 heroes in that Ravage. It's more like you get a Ravage off and you do a bunch of damage and maybe you kill one support and then the core's BKB and then you're just sitting there with your thumb up your ass and not doing anything.
If they don't BKB the Ravage to begin.
Yeah. That was another reason why the PA game felt so bad for me, was because he goes early BKB and he also got the break. So that's what I was thinking of with Silver Edge, is that I faced this PA with break, and there was a couple of fights where it's like I had a tanky build. I did try the Blade Mail Heart, by the way.
Okay.
I don't think it's great, but I think Shiva's is a much better item if you want to get tanky. And the Blade Mail is kind of awkward because, like, in theory, this game against PA, it should have been really good, right? You get this huge HP pool, so you can maybe outlast the PA. Obviously, his Fan of Knives does more, but whatever. And you get this, and Blade Mail is a good item against PA too, and it just felt so bad. This PA just fucking blew me up like 2 or 3 times, and that was the game where I'm like, okay, all right, maybe this isn't it. Maybe I should just stick to normal.
I'm glad you tried it though.
I did. Did you build any eggs at all?
I did, I think, in 2 games, where I just felt like we needed like more damage, or we had like a lot of physical damage, or maybe I think I built it against the CK, like just to deal with illusions or something.
No, that's true. Yeah, I think the X is good. I think I only built it once or twice. But yeah, especially if you have like some AoE physical damage, which I guess there's not a ton in this game, but like some bristlebacks or you just have really hard hitting physical damage cores, it's good to just ensure everybody gets gushed. But I think the highest priority, like you said, is this going Meteor Hammer, Blink Shard. Feels like you need to do that almost every game.
Yeah, I think those 3 items, like once you hit your shard, is kind of your biggest power spike of the game.
Yeah, I'd agree.
It's when your hero will be the strongest, and any item that you get beyond that is a much weaker power spike compared to those 3 items.
Yeah. One of the one of the pairings I wanted to try it because we were talking about hitting this timing, and the other hero that comes to mind when I think about hitting this timing at like 25 to 30, 32 minutes or so is Luna. I feel like Ty Luna as a core together is really, really good.
Yeah, I would agree.
So we should try that in a feller stack. Get some Ty Luna.
I would be down, yeah.
Because Luna wants to pressure high ground really early. You're able to fight before they get BKBs, and Luna does provide the burst to be able to actually kill people through Ravage if you get a good Ravage.
Yeah.
And then late game you get the Luna Ags, put it on the Blinking Tidehunter. Yeah, I love me some Luna Ags. Maybe that's the next hero.
Maybe. So maybe one final thing that I want to talk about is that on that last game, how I ended up losing, I think.
Okay.
So you mentioned earlier that, there's a Tidehunter pressuring your tower. You just kind of want to ignore it, right? What actually felt really bad was when people didn't ignore me. When they did bring like 3 heroes to my lane, like I'm trying to pressure a tower, and all of a sudden there's 3 heroes like running at me. And it's like, okay, that's new. And it might seem like stupid because you're like, I feel like you're investing so many resources to like shut down a Tidehunter, right? Like who gives a crap? But paired with the cores that I had, that I think I had a PA, so she wanted to, play more for the late game. There were just no moves like happening on the map, like whatsoever. Like I was trying to pressure somewhere, and then there's 3 heroes in my lane. They kill me, and I'm like, okay, I guess space created. But that prevented me from like getting towers, from building early momentum. Like if you invest a lot of resources to shut down this Tidehunter, he's not going to be able to do his thing and just take all of your tier 1 towers and then tier 2 towers and pressure the high ground. So I think probably the best way to counter him at a macro level is you see him go on a tower, you see him like using his meteor hammer, run at this guy. Run at this guy and kill him. Like he might have backup, sure. But if you're able to remove him from the map and not have him pressure your towers, I think you should do it. And then you might hit the late game, and then this hero is useless.
Yeah, I think it kind of goes in line with what we were saying, where you have this very specific timing that you're trying to hit, and if you get set back even by 3 or 4 minutes by something like this, like 1 or 2 rotations that kills you, your hero falls off really quick. So it's more about setting, like, shifting the timing from when your tie lineup is going to be really strong by getting 1 or 2 kills on him, even if it means the PA gets a little bit more farm. It just kind of shifts the window of your relative strength as a hero.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. The other thing is like you said, you're getting them off the map. It felt really hard once you establish this position, down by the poverty camps or by the tier 2s. If you get pushed out of it once, it felt hard to reclaim it. Because the map is so big and you have to go so far to go back down there, and then once you get killed once, or at least how I felt is you get killed once and you respawn and you have Ravage and you're like, all right, I can try to trot back down here across the map and try to reclaim this, or I can just go with my team and try and Ravage. And I think that's by default what you want to do. And then if you go with your team and you take a Ravage fight and it doesn't work, then all of a sudden your hero just feels useless. That happened in one of my games where like I got killed once, I got pushed out of the lane I wanted to occupy. We just grouped and I forced the Ravage because it felt like what we were supposed to do, and then we lost the fight, and then my game it just felt over. But overall though, I would say I would agree with you that I was pleasantly surprised with how the hero felt. It did not feel like a 41% win rate hero at all. No. It didn't feel like a busted hero, but like I said, it felt kind of like a middling, 48 to 50% win rate hero. And that probably needs some more love. And if he gets any sort of buff in the next patch, look out, because I think
he's getting nerfed.
Yeah, you think he'll get nerfed? I think
they're going to nerf the shard and leave the rest untouched.
Maybe. So. But also, even if that's all that happens, and there's nerfs to like Muerta's going to get nerfed for sure. And if there's nerfs to other offlaners, because that's usually how it goes in these cycles of these patches, is like it's not always the hero that gets buffed the most that becomes the good hero. It's the heroes that were already pretty good that are untouched and everything around it got nerfed. Those are the ones that elevate. So I would say that Tide's a candidate for that if his nerfs are minor, or if, heaven forbid, he gets a buff. Because I don't know that they're going to be looking to nerf a hero that's 41% win rate. I don't know what its win rate. Well, no, I do know because I looked at Dota Pro Tracker. It holds up in high brackets too. It's also like 41% win rate. Like, it's pretty bad across the board.
That's pretty crazy.
So I would not be surprised if there was no nerfs or if there was a buff. And if that happens, I think there's a lot of potential to zero.
Oh yeah, I agree.
So, okay. Well, do you have any more final thoughts on Tidehunter, or is that a wrap on the first hero that we played on the legendary Fellers podcast?
Maybe, I think, to summarize the hero.
Okay.
Because the meta right now, as we know, is, pick a lot of like late game stuff and kind of delay, split, and farm, because the map is so huge. It's hard to really shut down a hero, especially a carry. Tide does not align with that at all. But he just kind of drives a wrecking ball through that. Like, I think you can absolutely play him, even if he doesn't fit in that meta at all, but he can really, like, shut that down. So I think if you're looking at this and you're like, I feel like I have trouble dealing with all this late game stuff, try just picking Tidehunter and, like, winning in the early game, like, before you get to that late game. I think he's the perfect offlaner to do this type of strategy.
He's like the anti-meta.
Yeah.
Because you'll see that happen with long enough metas. Also, for the record, if anybody's listening to this later, we are recording this on November 17th of 2023. I should probably start saying that at the beginning of each episode. So we are post TI 12, right? Yes. Is that what it was? TI 12?
Yeah, that's what it is.
Spirit's second TI that they just won, and we're still on the TI patch from that TI. We're going to get a balance patch on Monday, so that's where this was at. And yeah, that's another thing with when I was talking about how he could be sneaky good next patches. If something shifts the meta, it could be helpful to him, even if it's completely unrelated to Tidehunter. If the way the game is played changes, you might see some win rate increases on this hero. So
I'm excited.
All right, cool. Well, thanks for joining me. I look forward to having you back. The next episode is going to be, or I guess the second half of this is going to be with our friend Brinson, who is a little bit lower MMR, and we'll get a little bit more of the spirit of the original Fellers podcast idea with getting a grip on heroes in different MMR brackets. So I think Tidehunter helped close our gap between your MMR and mine, because I lost a little bit, you gained a little bit. So maybe we'll be the same by the next episode. But all right, well, that's that for Tidehunter, and we are out of here. Okay, I have gone through a time warp, and now it is November 22nd, and we just had patch 7.34e. So the first half of the episode was Flitnet and I discussing how our Tide games went, and now we're back, and I'm here with Dog L. I think I had said I was going to do it with Brinson, who you guys haven't met yet, but Brinson decided that he didn't like the patch enough, so he didn't want to do the podcast this week. So we got Dog L in here.
Hello.
So let him go ahead and introduce himself. How's it going?
Hey, how's it going? So I'm Dogel. I've been playing on and off since about 2014-ish. I was actually introduced to the game by Flitnet, who was the last guest. I'm right now hovering around 3.5k MMR, which is like Legend 4, I think. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Nice. Welcome to the podcast. You're my second favorite French Canadian behind Flitnet. So
thank you.
Top 2 is pretty good. Pretty good. So yeah, we'll try and keep this maybe a little bit shorter, since Flit and I rambled a lot in the first half. So we're going to be doing position 4 today, and this is different from the last episode because there's a much bigger MMR gap, which is good because that's originally what I wanted to do with the podcast. So I think it'll be a little bit more interesting. We have a different role. Position 4 is something I'm pretty comfortable on as well. So I will let you do your heroes first. So just like last week, Dog L's going to have his 3 heroes. I'm going to have my 3. We'll each get to veto one of the other person's 3. And then we're going to RNG the last 4 to determine what we're going to play. So you can go ahead and what's your first hero?
All right. I'll just preface it by saying like 7.34e just dropped. So changed a little bit of the meta. So I kind of based some of my choices around that. Vlad's got buffed, Helms of the Overlord got buffed, Bevis too, and I feel like we might see a lot more heroes with controlled units, like Lycan and Beastmaster, Chen, stuff like that. Lycan already has like a 5% win rate increase this week. So my first hero is going to be Snapfire.
Nice. That was actually that was my backup hero in case we had crossover.
Well, perfect. Because Snapfire kind of had her spiel in being a carry hero, and it seems like people kind of forgot she was played a lot as a support hero. And I feel like with her E, she deals very well with a lot of ward units. So like Phoenix Ult, Shaman, Snakes, Pugna. Pugna's seen like a little bit more play. Same with Phoenix, so it could be good to deal with that. And her ult just feels very disruptive for team fights. So being able to kind of split apart those big ganks that you can set up with like a Lycan running in and like a Beastmaster blinking in and ulting just feels like she's kind of forgotten. She has like a really bad win rate right now in my bracket. Something like, I don't have it right now, but something like 45-6. I feel like she can do more. She has a lot of utility that can be pretty useful. So yeah, I'd love to try that one.
Yeah, it looks like she's 43 to 44 across the board, across all brackets, which I wonder if some of that is residue of people still trying to play at core when the core, or like as a right-click core when that got nerfed out into the ground.
So that's kind of why I was also bringing her back. Like, seems like we forgot the support that can be more that.
I agree with the sentiment of it too, because I enjoyed Snapfire support. I just played a Snapfire game. The last game I played was Snap. I always loved playing as support, and then it had this patch where it was core, and then the only things they nerfed about the hero were the core aspect, like the level 20 and 25, which you didn't do as a support anyway. I wonder if some of it is because she didn't deal with high HP heroes well, and that's why she wasn't great in the last meta. But I think the hero has a good kit.
One thing is her ult. Like Lycan seems to be a hero to really look out for this patch, and her ult is not necessarily good against Lycan, but her Ags can be useful into like chasing a Lycan that's just going away at light speed. So
I think
it probably work.
Yeah, it's probably a matchup you might struggle with, but I like the sentiment of it helps against some of the Zoo meta heroes. I do think we're going to see more Pugna. Phoenix was really popular last patch and somehow didn't get touched in this patch, so I would think Phoenix is still strong. So that's a good natural counter for that. Cool. I like Snap. What's your second hero?
My second hero would be Tusk. So, Tusk, I feel like myself in my bracket, I haven't seen Tusk played at all recently. I haven't seen it in so many games, and it's kind of a hero that we've seen do everything across the board. Like, people played it carry, people played it in mid, we've seen it off lane for a while, and it's playable as a 4, definitely. He has like a lot of utility that just makes it so even with less items, you can roam around, set up ganks, just be annoying. With the Zoo meta, it's kind of funny to just show up with a snowball with like 17 creeps in there with like a Chen or something, or like with a Beastmaster. And I played it and it felt really good playing it in the laning stage too with his E. Just feels like it's a powerhouse in just fighting against the other support, even if he gets like a few hits while you get close. Like, you can still catch that damage up. The other thing is, with the map being this big right now, and it feels like, you can beat up a carry and he's just gonna like retreat back into his poverty camp and just start farming there. Tusk with Snowball is a hero that can really set up some catch on those heroes, even if they try to retreat really deep into their side of the map to try to recover from a bad lane.
Yeah, I like Tusk. Tusk is definitely more but it feels more popular in my bracket. Let's see. Yeah, it is. It's the highest. The higher you go, the higher the pick rate. Win rate is pretty shit, but I think a lot of that is because Tusk as a hero has the widest like the skill floor. Like if you're not good with this hero, you're literally a creep. You're useless. But the skill ceiling is really, really high because there's so many things you do, not only with snowball and kick, but with the shards and yeah, I mean and then the kick. Like I said, the kick is huge.
And
Getting into the
snowball
late game.
it's a good chasing tool. It's a good initiation tool. It's a good just saving tool too.
Yeah,
So
it's one of the best saves in the game.
That's how it feels good as a support too.
Yeah, this was not one of my 3 heroes. I like the hero a lot. I thought that you might pick it, but I didn't want to pick it because I didn't know how comfortable you were on it. So I'm glad
surprised
you
you
put it in
didn't
there.
pick it because I know
Yeah,
you enjoy it.
Yeah, I like Tusk a lot. I'm glad that that's in there. I will not be upset if we get that one.
All right.
I'm trying to think of other. Well, if we get it, we can talk more about Tusk. What's your third?
Third hero would be Disruptor. I had a pretty hard time choosing my third hero. And Disruptor, I feel like, has been a bit... I mean, I don't watch Pro a lot, but I feel like it has been less popular recently, both in my brackets and in some of the programs I watch. The other thing is you have some heroes, like especially like Tidehunter, that's getting more popular again. Like he feels a lot stronger recently, and it feels like to shut down heroes like that, the only thing you can have is, with Kraken Shell would be Disruptor ult, and then with Lycan being super strong and being able to weave in, weave out, catch, stuff like that, Phoenix is still popular. Glimpse is just such a strong tool right now, and of course being able to keep control into large fights with kinetic field is something that I feel can be useful right now. And he doesn't have high pick rate and even worse win rate, I think, right now. So kind of a hero I think could be considered like a bit more of an underdog.
Yeah, I think I can speak a little bit to why Disruptor was particularly or seen as weaker, fell out of favor in the last patch. Because if you remember, maybe it was before 7.3.3, Disruptor was really highly contested and really, really strong. Seen as one of the best 5s in the game. And for a while, I think, and myself, I always thought of it as a 5. But at that time, when it was getting play in like the pro scene, a lot of the pros were playing it as 4 because you do really well with items. If you're a naked disruptor as a 5 and you have no farm priority, the hero can struggle. But if you can get to like a survival item plus ags, you can have crazy high impact. But as far as the last patch, I think it's a matter of Disruptor's really strong against like mobile squishy heroes like Spirits and Queen of Pain, or heroes that really rely on positioning. And with the last patch, you had mid like Primal Beasts and Spirit Breakers and stuff like this, and Kunkas that don't really care if they get glimpsed so much because they're so tanky, and then even they can outlast the field and then just charge in, or these are heroes that are rushing BKBs and stuff. So I think if those fall out of favor, or Spirit's another one where you'd think Glimpse was good against Earth Spirit, but with the invulnerability and roll, he can dodge it pretty reliably. I believe that's how that mechanic works.
And
I haven't seen Disruptor a lot, but
building a large amount of tankiness and we see a lot of Hurt Spirit going like basically blade mail into heart. It's like you can glimpse him, but you're probably not going to kill him by the time he gets rolled back because it's like 4-second cooldown.
Same with Bristleback. So Disruptor really struggled against a lot of the meta heroes, I guess is my point. And I think with some of those heroes falling into favor, and maybe we get more in the specifically mid laners, if we get more Quaps and Lenas and Tinkers, Leshraks, these type of heroes that won't necessarily go for a 7 BKB. They're a little bit more positioning dependent. I think it brings Disruptor back into the meta for sure.
Bring him back to be kind of good against Dazzle. Not that they nerfed his refresh blink. Because now even if he blinks a few times, you can glimpse him back, and the second you get damage on him, he can't just refresh it and get out again this time.
Yeah.
But he might not become really good until we get an actual main patch.
Yeah.
Because I don't think HP meta is leaving completely right now.
Yeah, I think it's always hard to tell the first week of a patch because, people will be doing different stuff, but is it really because the other stuff got nerfed so hard, or is it because they're just trying new things and then they'll settle back into going Blade Mail Hearts? But I did play a Disruptor game this morning, and it felt really good. But it was a really good Disruptor game. We were against Dawnbreaker and Tinker, and this hero shits on both of those heroes.
Yep.
Dawnbreaker, you can just glimpse the ulti, and then obviously it's a really good catch for Tinker. But yeah, I like the hero. I like it.
All right. Curious about
Cool.
yours
Well,
now.
we actually didn't have any crossover aside from the Snapfire, which was my extra hero, but I'll take that out of the rotation now, so that's fine. My first one isn't by win rate, and I was really surprised by the win rate. By win rate isn't that weak of a hero, but I feel like I never see this hero, and that's Shadow Shaman. I think in my games at least, I don't see very much Shadow Shaman, but I'm looking at the pick
You
rate's
see it a
11%.
lot in lower brackets.
Is it more 4 or 5? Because I feel like people pick at 5 more than 4. But maybe that's my perception.
I've seen it in both, and I feel also like the distinction between a 4 and a 5 is smaller the lower MMR you go.
Yeah, that's true.
Like,
Well, I think so.
it feels
I think part of the reason. So, all right. So in higher MMR games, Shadow Shaman isn't played as much, and I think part of the reason is because you can't trade particularly well, or at least last patch you couldn't trade with a lot of the popular supports, and you're so slow and clunky that teams that have cores in the team that are good at jumping you and killing you, like Spirit Breakers and Primal Beasts and these type of heroes, you can just get destroyed and melted. But I think with some of those heroes going away, and with another buff to the damage amp on the W, which I think is underrated, whenever you have high HP pools, damage amp is just by default it's going to be better because you're having high HP pools, and we've talked a little bit about the power creep of the game, so everybody's just doing more damage in general. So having a built-in damage amp is really nice. I think another thing that people do on this hero that I don't like is and this might be a hot take, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I think this shard sucks dick. I think it's awful. I would never spend 1,400 gold on it. And I see people buying, like if you get it from the Tormentor, it's like, oh, okay, like, that's nice. But I've seen people buying it like 15, 16 minutes, they're rushing shard. And I think that's like almost griefing. More because the hero is pretty item dependent and there's so much you need because you are pretty slow and your cast ranges aren't huge. So you need items like Aether Lenses or Glimmers. But if you can survive the laning stage, the Hex is really good. It gives you good catch, gives you tower push, and overall it's really fun to play. So this might be a case where the hero is better in your bracket than in mine, and I think it'd be fun to kind of compare how our relative experiences are.
Yeah.
So that's my first one.
Yeah, I feel like in my bracket, Shadow Shaman being good revolves around him having just a lot of CC. CC is really strong, while people in lower brackets tend to layer it a lot less. Just having like a combined tool, I don't know how long it is, but like an insane amount of combined tool CC is just really good because people also tend to peel less for like their supports or people that get caught. So just
I think it
is
kind
insanely
of
strong.
I think it goes both ways though with your teammates peel less, but I think also then in higher MMR, people are better at focusing important targets too, and I think usually Shadow Shaman's seen as a really important target because he's easy to kill, but also has high impact if you don't kill him. So yeah, I like Shaman. That's my first hero. So my second hero, and this you may or may not veto this, I'm not sure. The second hero is actually a Dogel hero that got a buff.
All right.
You want to guess what it is?
You said it's a Dogel hero, but he got a buff.
It's not a big buff. It's Enigma.
Uh,
I think we've talked about a lot.
I was
the hero
just complaining about Enigma recently. I was like, oh yeah, 10 seconds less, haha, like good old
Well, it was
buff.
20. It was 20.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's a relatively minimal buff, but going back to what you were talking about, how I think there's a perception that there's going to be more of a Zoom meta coming back. I don't know. I think there might be a way to play this hero. I'm not sure what it is yet. I am also an Enigma enjoyer, and I wish I could find a way for it to be good. Because when it is good, I liked playing a lot. When it was when they introduced blood grenades and he was a position 5 and was playable as a position 5 was really fun. But then they did the weirdest change ever with his W, and the hero's been in an awkward spot ever since. But yeah, we can talk about that more if we get it. I think that there's ways to maybe play this hero.
Yeah.
But I thought it'd be fun to put in there because I know you and I both really enjoy playing this hero, and he's kind of in a weird
It's just
spot right
so
now.
hard to play as a... Well, he's hard to play right now, but as a 4 too.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll veto it. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
But I just put it in there just because.
Mm-hmm.
And then my third hero is probably... I don't think it's a grief pick. I think it has potential. Tiny 4. Tiny got a nice buff. He got mana cost reduction on his Q, his stun, in the last patch, which I think it's now 90 or 95. Which before was one of the limiting factors for Tiny, is your spells are pretty high mana cost, and you don't have a very big mana pool.
Yep. Tiny is definitely a mana pool sufferer.
Yeah, but it went down from 9. Let's see,
It's now
let's see the actual
90 plus 10 each level.
Okay, so it went from 120 to 90. That's
For
a
laning
lot.
stage, that's a lot. That's basically an extra.
It's a big difference.
An extra spell without having to regen.
Yeah. So for a lower level Tiny that wants to move around the map, or just make stuff happen with Q, I think that makes a big difference. So it might be playable again. This hero's been gone in and out of favor as a 4. I feel like a lot the last year or so. There's been times where it's been really strong. I think it. I remember it got picked at TI at least once.
Yeah. Historically, it's been such like a carry hero that sometimes I have a hard time seeing it as a 4. But I've definitely seen it like work really well as a 4, and probably a lot more in the recent years. So
yeah,
could be an interesting one.
Last week when I did it with Flit, I felt like I did 3 like really straightforward heroes, and so this week I did maybe some stranger heroes, I guess. I guess Shadow Shaman isn't really strange, but Tiny Enigma definitely are. Okay, so then my 3 are Tiny, Enigma, and Shaman, and yours were... Say yours again?
It was Tusk, Snapfire, and Disruptor.
Okay. Fire, Disruptor. Okay. Which of mine would you like to veto, if any?
I am going to veto Tiny because
I figured.
I feel like in between your 2 weird heroes, Enigma and Tiny, I can play Enigma, and I really enjoy Enigma, and I wish he was back in the meta, even if like not that good, just not like unplayable. But Tiny, I'm not that good at, and I feel like I would have a more enjoyable experience and probably more relevant feedback on Enigma.
Yeah, that's fair. I honestly didn't know if you had any history of playing Tiny 4 or not. I didn't know if it was maybe a thing you used to play but don't play anymore. So I didn't know if it would be something you'd be comfortable with. So I figured that if it wasn't, that would be the veto. Okay, for yours, I don't even know if I want to veto any of them. I like all 3 of your heroes. I'm going to leave them all in because I like all 3 of them.
All right.
I actually I definitely considered Tusk and Snapfire, and after playing Disruptor this morning, I considered Disruptor as well. So I think you have some good picks.
I thought about Warlock too.
Just God, that was
Zoom meta, but I know you don't enjoy it, and it's kind of a simple answer to Zoom meta. I also thought about bringing Earth Spirit, just more to talk about Earth Spirit and how he feels about
left it in.
Like as a 4, because he's more of a mid right now.
Maybe we can do a bonus episode on Earth Spirit where I'll play it in Honor.
I would love it.
Yeah, all right. We'll table that. Maybe we'll do it in the future. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an RNG, and you're going to trust that I'm not going to cheat because it'd be stupid to cheat. So between our 5 heroes, I'm going to roll a number, and then that'll determine what we get. And let's see. I'm going to hit it twice. 1, 2. We got number 2, which is Snapfire. Let's go.
All right. I think it's one of the more interesting ones because her win rate is really low.
Okay, let's look at
unreasonably
win rate and pick rate. So win rate we have 44% across the board and 5% pick rate in Legend and 4.2 in Divine Plus. So yeah, pretty low pick rate hero. And I think of those picks, I would say still probably maybe 25% at least are people playing at core. It might be way higher. And I think that might be contributing to the loss percentage. All right, well, it's your hero. Do you want to talk? Do you have anything more to say about Snapfire that you didn't say before?
No, not much. I think I
Okay.
went through all my points.
Cool.
I noted.
So let's see. So obviously things you're good against. You want to see Phoenixes, Undyings, Pugnas.
Yeah.
Um,
And you
definitely-
mentioned you think Shaman is an underdog, can be useful, like not to kill all the wards, but at least to clear some wards or
Yeah.
help when someone's ward trapped.
very helpful. It's also good against TA, which might be a hero that we see more, just because other heroes fall off. This is a hero people like to play. I like
And
TA. I'll be playing it this match.
If we see like HP meta sticking around, we might see a little bit more of Undying now that the big heroes have been nerfed.
Yeah.
If we see more Undying, it's super good to just instantly remove a Tombstone from a fight.
What do you think? What do you think about item builds? Is there something that you're going to try to go every game, you think, or is it more situational? Did you have anything in mind with that?
If you look at like itemization on Dota Buff right now, as you said, it's probably being played as a carry a lot because there's a lot of like very greedy, more like power spiky items. But I'm usually an enjoyer of either getting a Force Staff or a Glimmer Cape. Probably more leaning towards Glimmer Cape if we're going to be in a kind of zoo meta where we're going to get chased for free by like Lycan anyways. Like Force Staffing away from Lycan is going to save you like 1.4 second or something. So it's probably Force Staff. Ags, if the money's there, it's just a good item to initiate, but it's more of a greedy later game item. And if the game's rough, Pavis got buffed, and I don't think it's hero specific, but I love the Pavis, and people usually kind of discount it, and they're like, okay, that hero's dead, and you just Pavis them and save them. It's such a good feeling.
So here's the thing about Pavis is because it's just a flat, it's a flat barrier. So the earlier you get in the game, the better, and then it falls off later game. But it's really cheap and the build-up's really good. So if you get this really early, it's pretty high impact, especially if you have a lineup that's looking to push earlier, looking to make team fights happen early. It can be pretty useful. I like Atos on this hero.
Of course.
But I think what I like about Snap is it's one of those fours, and I think there's a lot of the fours fall in this category, but I think Snap really feels like it more than anything, where you can just build whatever you need for the game. And I think some games it might be Spirit Vessel, some games it might be Force Staff, some games it might be Glimmer. But I think you're right that you want to have a Force or a Glimmer. I like Force so that you can like get in the middle of the fights with your Q and your W, and maybe like E if you're killing some Phoenix Egg.
Yep.
But then you can force yourself away to give yourself an ulti. I think this is the one clunky thing about the hero is that you're like half your kit has you wanting to be right up close and personal, and then you have this ult where you want to be on the edge of the fight. So that can be a little bit awkward to use. I think Force F maybe closes that gap a little bit where you're able to use your full kit a little bit more effectively in every fight. So I would lean towards Force Staff in general, but that's going to be more specific of what the enemy teams is and what you need.
And I
don't hate Pavis.
Yeah, an item that I'm seeing is not built that often on her, but I feel it could be useful, especially if you have a carry that can like in lane, where you have a kill potential with them, is Solar Crest. Or like Medallion into Solar Crest, just like maybe taking one value point just to remove some armor, and then with the Blightstone, just the minus armor can make that combo really deadly even in lane. It's not that pricey of an item, and it feels like sometimes it's so insanely powerful.
Yeah, I think Crest is. Yeah, Crest is good on Snap. But again, it's super game specific. I don't know that I like it so much as like a combo with the E. I mean, the E removes some armor, but it's not a ton. But it's just in general, because you're this support hero that you're just gonna get whatever items work for the game. I think how I like playing 4 in general is I like being, especially when you have a good utility kit, I like just stacking a couple of defensive items and be really difficult to kill. And then maybe the other team scores, they just get frustrated with it, or maybe they have to buy a nullifier because of you. So I will probably be in my games going for some combination of Glimmer and Force and maybe Ghost Scepters. And just be like really annoying so that they don't feel like they can go on you, and then you can just sit back and use your whole kit. Yeah. One other note, so one hero that I know I've seen a huge uptick in, and I figured I would, is Position 5 Gyrocopter. I think this is going to be a lot more games because of the buff to Rocket Barrage. And if you lane Snapfire against Gyrocopter, you just get a value point in your E. You can always kill his missile, and it just makes his missiles useless. Because he puts it on the ground, you press E and just kill it immediately. So I think that's something to look out for if you see any Position 5 Gyros. Like, I would skill it at level 2 if I'm against Gyro.
We might even see a lot more of Gyro 1 too. Not for the same reason, but for the reason of if we get a meta where there's a lot more controlled units, like Chen-like and stuff like that, having Gyro 1 can really help turn the fight.
Yeah, and then the other thing is the cookie is good to separate away from Gyro as well. So I think this hero will do well against Gyros. Gyro's seen an uptick in picks, so I like that aspect of it as well. I am curious to see. I know there's kind of this overall feeling that we're going to see more of a Zoo meta, but I think it's more of a speculation based off a couple of buffs. I wouldn't be surprised if that just doesn't happen. But
cool. I've been going on that assumption, just looking at like pick rates and win rates, but it could definitely like be just people feeling for it and being like, it's actually not that good, and then dropping it. And
I'll be playing some Lycan as well and see how it feels. But
nice.
Okay, cool. Well, so what we're gonna do is we'll end the podcast, and then we'll each go play 3 to 5 games of Snapfire Position 4 in our respective brackets, and then we'll come back and discuss a week from now, or maybe a few days from now, depending on when we actually play our games, because we took a while to do the last episode. But we'll tentatively plan for about a week. We'll come back. So, do you have any other thoughts before we go?
Nope.
All right. Well, thanks for joining me today, and let's go win some Dota.